show recording.
Yeah, we on the road. The past going hand with
Happy birthday, dear. Happy birthday to you.
And with an introduction like that, how could we go wrong? Welcome back to Patriots Central. I'm Steve Balestriei. I'll be your co-host for tonight. Along with me is Jeremy Dawson, as always. And in case you didn't notice, yesterday was both Jeremy and myself's birthday. So Brian from Pro Football Central, who so graciously provided that birthday tune for us, we thank you very much. And it was quite a nice birthday yesterday. We had a wonderful time, and we were down at training camp yesterday, and then went to eat at Toby Keith's. So with that, let me welcome my co-host, Jeremy. How are you doing this evening?
Hey, I'm doing really good. I was not ready for Alvin and the Chipmunks to open up the show, but I'm not mad about it.
Yeah, it kind of took me by surprise. I'll say that. I did not expect that. And I'm not a person who gets surprised very easily, so that was pretty cool.
Yeah, and Brian told us to pause for a second. I thought we were going to have an advertisement or something to open the show. He's advertising ourselves.
So without further ado, what do you say we get in to the show tonight and introduce our first guest?
Definitely.
All right. Our first guest tonight is a writer and a podcast host of Patriots 4th and 2, Russ Goldman. He's also the podcast co-host of Cottage Talk, which deals with the English Premier League in soccer. And Russ just had a big coup today. He interviewed the new owner for the Fulham team, who he covers, and the owner is also the the owner of the Jacksonville Jaguars. So that was quite the interview for Russ. Russ, welcome to Patriots Central.
Thanks for having me, guys. And it was quite an interview with Shai Khan, who does own the Jaguars and Fulham Football Club, and he talked to him for 25 minutes today, and it was pretty amazing.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm still laughing about the Chipmunks, but let's get right into training camp, Russ. I know you've been down there every day because you've been sitting beside me every day. So
Right.
we've seen a lot of things. What's the biggest thing that sticks out to you so far?
Aqib Talib. Aqib Talib looks like a real number one corner for the New England Patriots. I think he's been the best player on the field. When we've watched these one-on-one drills with the wide receivers, there have been some really interesting battles, and the biggest battle, I think, has been between Danny Amendola and Aqib Talib. And I have to say that they've split these battles, but overall, Talib has really been shut down on the Patriots receivers. Whenever I see him, he always looks like he's in the right place. But not only that, he always seems to bat the ball away at the very last minute. I'm very excited to see him this season, Steve, because I think this is the guy that we had hoped that we would see for a short period of time with the Patriots last season. If he could stay healthy, I think the Patriots have themselves a real number one corner.
I couldn't agree with you more. I think Talib's been fantastic this summer so far. And, one of the things that sticks out for me was the fact that he won the off-season award winner for workouts and the off-season stuff. And I think that's fantastic because it shows, he's putting his cards on the table this year. And I think he's going to be due for a really big season.
I really think so, Steve. Listen, it's twofold. If he plays well, he's going to get a big paycheck, whether it's from the Patriots or someone else. And in the meantime, the Patriots can get a player that's going to be playing at his highest level. So it's a win-win for everyone, and I think it's a huge win for the Patriots because they really haven't had this, I guess you could say, a shutdown corner. I want to go back to to Asante Samuel. It's been a while, but this guy actually reminds me more of Ty Law.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say Ty Law, not so much Samuel, but yeah, if he can stay healthy this year, he could be that guy. Tell me what your impressions are, early impressions, I know, on Amendola so at this point.
Well, it's funny because I could really easily tell you that Danny Amendola has been the second best player in camp. Danny Amendola, it's funny, we were joking, if you changed his numbers and you didn't look close enough, you would think you were looking at Wes Welker. But I will tell you this, that it's a little bit different because we're watching more routes of his that seeing him split out wide. He's not just playing in the slot. I think you will see him in the majority of the time in the slot. But it's good to know that he can actually be split out wide in motion, and he's catching everything in sight, and he's getting separation. And that's the key thing. Listen, I know fans in New England are going to miss Wes Welker, but I think within 2 games, they're going to remember Danny Amendola.
I think that's a good point, Russ, because, you know, one of the things we've seen about him is he's automatically assuming that, you know, that role that Welker had as Brady's go-to guy. And we've seen them move him around the field a lot. And when they put him in motion, they put him out wide. You know, they're going to go to him a lot this year. And I think he's primed for another big year as well. Jeremy, what would you like to ask Russ?
All right, I'm gonna stick with receivers, but switch it over to tight ends a little bit. And I thought that Mike Hooman has been unbelievably impressive. I wasn't ready for him to come out the way that he did, but I've been reading a bunch of different reports from all different writers and media who have just been naming different people. Some say Jake Ballard is right there on top of, like, maybe even the number 1 target for Brady this year. I've heard other people say that Jake Ballard may not even make the roster. Daniel Fells has gotten some love from people. Zach Sudfeld is on his way up. I was just wondering, what tight end has really stood out for you?
Well, the best way that I can put it to you, Jeremy, is it's really an open competition. I don't know if any of them have really stood out, if I'm being completely honest with you. I was thinking about it as you were talking about it. Hooman, and there's no way that I'm going to even attempt his real name because it'll just come out really badly. But Hooman, when I just like to call him that, has been decent. We could talk about Daniel Fells, decent. The player that's actually disappointed me at the tight end position would have to be Jake Ballard. I think Jake Ballard is still dealing with lingering injuries, and he looks pretty heavy. To be honest with you, he looks very big, and I really expected some big things from him, considering what the Patriots were going to be losing at the tight end position. And so far, I can't tell you that I've been impressed. I haven't been impressed. I just see him as being a little bit of a disappointment. Now, the player that I think does have some upside is Zach Sudfeld, and you know what? I think there might be something there. I don't know if he's all the way there yet, but if I had to put some money down, I might put it on Sudfeld making the team. I'm not saying that Ballard's not, but I got a feeling that Sudfeld's going to work himself into the 53-man roster.
Interesting. Just flip the field for a second. I was wondering if you've seen any defensive players who maybe aren't quite known as a clear-cut starter who may end up pulling a spot once the regular season comes around.
Wow, that's a great question. Because I was just trying to think about that as you said that. It's funny. There is a player that might actually take away a position, or might be sharing time, and that would be Jamie Collins. Jamie Collins has really shined at I can't even give you a position, Jeremy, because I don't think the Patriots know where to use him yet. He can play outside linebacker. He can play defensive end. I think you're going to see him possibly getting a lot of time. I don't know if he's going to be a starter, but this is someone that actually has really stood out for me. And you're talking about a rookie. He has so much athleticism, and the biggest complaint that I've heard from Patriots fans last season was we need a coverage linebacker. And I have to tell you, I've seen him cover tight ends pretty well so far. He's very athletic. That's the player that I think you should be looking at on the defensive side to take a jump. And even as a rookie, I wouldn't be shocked to see him really getting some serious playing time this year.
Definitely, I agree. He's been very impressive to me. Coming into camp, I thought we were just going to see him on the edge, kind of going in, and we really haven't seen him rush the passer a lot at all. And
No.
the way he's been dropping back, it's definitely looking good for the Patriots. Steve, any more questions from you?
Russ, what's your take so far on the running game?
Well, the running game's interesting because I've heard so much talk about it, and I was just actually watching something about Shane Vereen. They were talking about how Shane Vereen can really take the place of someone like Kevin Falk, but be a more explosive version of Kevin Falk. I think these running backs are going to have a huge year, and I'm not saying that they're going to take the place of the wide receivers as it's going to flip to be more of a running game. But I do think that they're going to be emphasized, especially more in the beginning of the year. And I really like Ridley as your regular down back, and I like Vereen. Vereen could come in, come in on third down. He could even come down on first and second down. But where he's valuable is I think you can also see him go on as a wide receiver. I mean, he could play so many different positions, but he has that explosiveness. He has that breakaway ability that makes him special. Ridley will be your first, second down back, but Vereen's the guy that's the game breaker.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And as we've all seen for so many years, Bill Belichick is such a game planning, game specific kind of coach that some weeks Ridley might be the primary guy if the other opponents start going with a really heavy roster, they'll loosen him up with Vereen, and I think that he's due for a big year. I wouldn't be surprised to see him get 1,000 combined yards between rushing and receiving this year, and I stand by that. So Russ, go ahead.
No, I was going to say I was just going to agree with you, Steve.
Well, we tend to agree on lots of things, so. I wish we had Derek here because he could tell us how to pronounce Who-Man's name correctly. But,
yeah, exactly.
What are you looking for now? Tomorrow, the Patriots are back at it. What are you looking for tomorrow? Because it seemed like the offense today had kind of a rough afternoon.
Well, they've had a few of these. It's funny because when they've had a bad day, they usually have bounced back pretty strongly, and the wide receiver position is something that I'm still looking at on a regular basis because I know that they might have some bad days, and you're going to have that with some of these rookie wide receivers. But I'm looking for these guys to just bounce back and keep fighting, and that's what I've seen so far from them, is that the drop-off might be one day, but then the next day they're going to be back. So I'm looking for the wide receivers to have a bounce-back day.
Awesome. Russ, before we let you go, I know you had a busy day today. Tell us where we can find you, besides sitting next to me at training camp, of course, and on the internet and on Twitter.
Well, that's the place you can usually find me now, is right next to you. But you can find me on Twitter at Russ_Goldman. You can also listen to Patriots 4th and 2 on blogtalkradio.com. And you can also you can also listen to Cottage Talk also on blogtalkradio.com, and also my blog, Pat's Confidential, on patsfans.com.
All right, man. We thank you very much, and have a good evening, and I will see you tomorrow, my friend.
Okay.
Fans, check out fifthdowncigar.com and enter the coupon code PFC to get 10% off your order. Lots of nice high-end cigars. That's fifthdowncigar.com. Enter the code PFC for 10% off your order.
And welcome back to Patriots Central. We just finished up a interesting interview with Russ Goldman, and now we're going to move on to what Jeremy and I have been talking about and seeing down at training camp. Jeremy, what's the biggest thing that stood out to you so far this year?
Oh, there's definitely been a few storylines that need to be addressed, but I mean, the biggest storyline in New England has to be the wide receivers. So I definitely say that we should start with that.
Sounds good. So I know with Russ, we talked about Danny Amendola, who I think has been outstanding. But who's been standing out to you?
Honestly, pretty much all of New England has heard the guy's name at this point, but Kenbrell Tompkins has just gone above and beyond. Undrafted free agent, we got him this year, and on the first day of training camp, I was like, that kid's going to do something. Like, I put a star right next to his name on my notes, and ever since, I mean, I was out in the crowd. I know that you were in the VIP section. I mean, I'm not on that level yet, but I was out in the bleachers with the crowd, and I told the guy to watch out, and then 3 days later, I'm standing with the same guy, and he was just raving about him to his friends, telling his friends that I'm a genius. So that was pretty cool. But yeah, he's definitely fighting for a spot. He gets open very often, and even when he doesn't, I like the way that he fights for balls. I know that, I believe it was today actually, Talib picked off a pass that was going to him on the sidelines, but still, even when he doesn't make the catch, he fights for it, and that's definitely something you want to see out of your young receivers. So seeing him come in, and the big rookie names that we were looking for was Aaron Dobson and Josh Boyce, who were impressive, but Kenbrell Tompkins, he's another name everybody needs to look out for.
Absolutely. And, the one thing that strikes me about all three of those guys we were just talking about is we watch them closely in the wide receiver drills when they match up one-on-one with the cornerbacks. And the one thing that just keeps jumping out at me is how good these guys are at breaking the jam at the line of scrimmage. And I think that's going to go a long way because the Patriots offense is based so much on timing that, the wide receivers have to be able to do that so they can get in the position where Brady's going to be throwing the ball to a spot on the field. And, the one thing that we've noticed about all three of these guys that we talked about, Boyce, Dobson, and Kenbrell Tompkins, is their ability to break that jam. And they've been able to get open, and they've made some really nice catches. I know all of them have had their moments. And being rookies, they're all going to have their not-so-great moments. I mean, we've seen them all draw passes that should be easily caught, but we've also seen them make the tough catches. And I think it just comes with more confidence. I think, and more repetitions with Brady. I think they're all getting on the same sheet of music with him. And Brady seems to be trusting these guys a lot.
Right. It's going to be interesting to see who actually gets out there on the starting spots, because I still think outside of Amendola, it's still open for the other spots. And like you said, their initial burst is outstanding for each guy. And even Amendola, same thing. The start of his routes is great. They each have something great that they bring to the table too. Aaron Dobson has been making some awesome catches. Josh Boyce, I haven't seen him get targeted too often, but still, it looks like his route running is just, he may have the best routes on the team.
Absolutely. That's the one thing that stood out with Boyce. I mean, other than the fact that he has tremendous wheels, I mean, this guy has some really top-end speed, but he runs such precise routes. And, I think they're, right now, if I thought the season would start tomorrow, I think you'd see Amendola, Dobson, and probably Julian Edelman. But I think you'd still see a lot of Boyce and Tompkins, because I think these guys are going to be in the mix a lot this year. And that's good. You keep fresh legs on guys who can, run those deep routes, guys who can stretch the field. I think these guys are going to be something a lot more than we were led to believe going into the training camp.
Right. And, the great thing about all this conversation about the Patriots training camp so far is that the big talk has been around our rookie receivers. We never see that.
No.
Patriots just we have a great history of drafting low-name players, but it's never receivers. We've terrible history in drafting receivers, but hopefully this group is going to turn it around. And then you brought up Julian Edelman. He came back, and it's definitely looking like Brady's looking to get him in the swing of things. I wasn't sure that he was going to start at receiver, but it looks like Brady wants him to be a target.
Absolutely, and Brady has that trust factor with him. We all know that Brady has always admired his work ethic, and that those two have gotten along real well, and Brady trusts them. And that's a big thing with Brady is he'll always trust somebody that he thinks is going to be able to get in the right place and get the football. And I think that Edelman is one of those guys that can do that. But we've seen these rookies step up, and they still have a long way to go. But I'm really excited to see what they can do in a game situation next Friday night against the Philadelphia Eagles, because I think they're primed to make a splash for themselves.
Can we just have a moment of silence real fast for that next Friday against the Philadelphia Eagles? Football is right around the corner.
That's it.
That is nice.
Yeah, that's right. And to remind our listeners, you're listening to Patriots Central, part of the Pro Football Central Network. And let's move on a little bit. We touched on it briefly with Russ. Let's talk about the tight ends, because one of the things that you and I talked about this a few weeks ago. We were really excited about the prospect of Jake Ballard stepping up once the season started, filling in for Rob Gronkowski, who's still mending from that back surgery. And by the way, for our listeners, Rob Gronkowski has been at practice every day, although he's not in uniform, but he's been there. And that's usually a good sign with the Patriots. If guys are really hurting, you normally don't see them. They keep them, hidden away, so to speak. But he's been out there every day, and he seems to be walking a little bit gingerly at times. But hopefully that's a sign that he'll be back sooner rather than later. But let's get back to Jake Ballard. He really seems like he's laboring out there. I watched him Tuesday. He only went to the first half of practice, and he sat out the second half. Yesterday, he was really laboring. He went through the whole practice, but he looks like he's in a lot of pain.
Really? Yeah, I missed I wasn't able to make it to yesterday's practice, but I definitely, since day one, Jake Ballard was looking heavy. But the one thing though, when he was downfield, he was making catches. And it was nice to see that big body downfield making plays, but if it's just a injury that's going to slowly progress, the more work that he does, I'm not sure how long the Patriots can hold on to ties, or at least get him back into another sort of rehab. Because the other tight ends have really impressed, so I don't think there's any need to rush this guy back.
No, in fact, Human, who none of us can pronounce his real name.
I don't know.
I thought overall he's been the most solid. I thought in the passing game he's done better than expected. He's not a downfield threat. He's a kind of in the box, move the chains kind of guy. But I think he's been getting open. He's making some plays. He's a very good blocker, and they can move him around. They can put him at H-back. They can put him in the backfield. So he's been doing really well. Daniel Fells is Daniel Fells. I think he is what you see, and I think he's been very well. And, that rookie, Zach Sudfeld, we've seen him flash quite a few times. He's such a big target. He's a good blocker, and, he's 6'7", and he has some good speed down the seam. And if he can get consistently open, I think he's going to find a spot for himself on the roster.
Right. Sudfeld has definitely impressed, especially the last few practices. He's been really stepping it up. And Human has been my number one tight end as well lately, especially during training camp itself. I thought he was great. I know that he caught more passes than any other tight end during the training camp sessions from Tom Brady, which is the biggest thing. I know that a lot of the other tight ends were making nice catches and stuff, but a lot of times it was passes from Mallet. And I think that it's really important to see who's gelling with Brady, and Human has been in the middle of a lot of his plays. I also believe I've seen him playing fullback a couple of times, so it looks like the Patriots are looking to use him.
Absolutely. So, and we touched on the running game briefly with Russ also in our interview. But, the one thing that stood out for me was the running game looks solid so far this summer. But the one issue that keeps standing out is they're putting the ball on the ground. And that was an issue with Stephen Ridley earlier in his career. It seemed like he had turned a corner on that last year, but it's starting to rear its ugly head again so far in training camp. He's put the ball on the ground a few times. and it's been an issue. I know the one day we were there, I think that was the same day you were there. Belichick you could hear his voice all over the
Oh yeah.
practice field. He was not a happy man at that point.
Right. That was the day because they were on one-on-one drills where it was the drill where the defender's supposed to be trying to knock the ball out and really dropped it. And it was like, all right, like this has been a problem, but this is what the drill's supposed to be. This is what we're looking for. And then they went over to the 11 on 11s, and I believe within 15 minutes he fumbled the ball twice, and it
Yeah.
just it was rough. But to the same respect, you got to give Jamie Collins a shout out. I know we're not on defense yet, but he has been knocking the ball out a lot, and that is looking great.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to get to Jamie Collins in a minute, but every day that we've been there, we've seen him strip somebody in that one-on-one tackling drill.
Yes.
And he did it again this afternoon. He did it yesterday. He did it on Tuesday. We're going to definitely touch on that.
Right.
While we're still on the offense, we're going to definitely get to that, listeners. Let's talk about Tim Tebow, because I thought the first 2 days of practice, he was absolutely horrifyingly bad. But yet the last few days, he's been slowly working himself up. I think it was Tuesday, or might have been yesterday. He might have had his best practice as a member of the Patriots, and he's throwing the ball much better.
Right. And going to the practices every day, it's tough, like I said, because I was in the crowd, and it's strange to watch because the first couple of days, Tim Tebow, honestly, it looked like a joke. Like, he would throw a pass, and it would hit the ground, and the crowd would cheer out of just laughter. And it was sad to see. But then after the first 2 days, the next day, he completed, I believe he ended the last play of training camp was a deep bomb from Tim Tebow. And it was just
He's throwing to Tompkins.
right, and it was just a beautiful catch, and then the crowd erupted in a cheer, and I was like, do you guys like this kid? Like, I don't understand if they want to make fun of him or if they want to see him do good. I really, it's New England can be confusing at times.
Yeah. But the one thing that stands out with Tebow is, we've seen him working on the side every day with Ryan Daboll, the coach they brought back this year. And it seems to be taking effect because, I've been watching, I watch Tebow every day because he's a fascinating case, and he's so polarizing, with the fan base, because, there's very little middle ground with him. People either love Tebow or they hate him as a football player. I think everyone respects him as a person. He seems to be a genuinely very nice guy. But, I've been watching him. His throwing motion's much better. He's holding the ball higher. His motion is shorter now. He's getting more accurate with the football. But the one thing that stands out to me is the last couple of days in practice, they're giving him a package. And I don't know if this scares me or it's just, a training camp thing. But they're giving him a package, and it's more of a read option type thing that plays to Tebow's strengths. And we've talked about that. They need to play to his strengths rather than try to make him do what he can't. And we've seen that yesterday. They did it again today, and they have this special package of plays in. And I'm wondering if they're going to incorporate that into the game situations, hopefully just in the preseason.
See, that package that they've been running with the read option actually made me extremely optimistic about Tim Tebow going to make this roster. Biggest reason is because there's a lot of read option across the NFL. And when you're practicing, usually you game plan for your next opponent. So I was thinking maybe they are installing this package and teaching it to them so the starting defense can play against Tim Tebow running that offense that he can run. So because I know we play the Carolina Panthers this year, we're going to see it a lot with Cam Newton. So maybe we're doing it as a form of we need to learn how to defend this because it's making its way to the NFL. Like, it's here.
It could very well be, and we know Belichick loves to, play situational football and practice it, and they were doing that yesterday and again today. They were heavy on situational football, and that might be just it. I mean, they're going to be facing this type of offense. They had issues with it last year. We all remember the San Francisco game, and the 49ers run that to a little bit, to a degree. They don't run it exclusively, but I'm just worried that they're going to take Tom Brady off the field and and take the ball out of his hand. And for the record, I've told people this. I like Tim Tebow. I think he can be a very good quarterback in the NFL. I'm just not happy if he's doing it at the expense of Tom Brady snaps. Does that make sense?
Yes, Tom Brady should not be out of a game. Tim Tebow should be a quarterback in the NFL. I believe that as well. But he should not be in if Tom Brady is healthy on your team.
Unless it's a blowout situation.
Exactly. I know that the Patriots have a little bit of a history for running up scores, but if it's a blowout, just let Tom Brady rest, let Tim Tebow get his snaps, have some fun. Like I said before, sell some jerseys, and move on. But to Tom Brady, Tom Brady's been very good, and one of the most important things that I've loved to see is during the training camp, Tom Brady would throw an incomplete pass and yell at himself. I love to see that from Brady because it just shows how much of a competitor he is. And it was actually a comment from Leon Washington. I know he had an interview, and he was saying how the one thing that he noticed, because he's played with Brett Favre before, the similarity between the two that makes them both great is that they're both unbelievably competitive. And no matter what the play is, no matter if it's one-on-one drills, they want to be perfect.
Absolutely, and that's the thing that stands out with Brady. I think most of the players that come here don't realize that, the competitive fire burns in him really brightly, and it goes right down to practice. And I think it makes all the other players better because practice becomes very competitive. They're not just going through the motions out there. Now the offensive players want to score and the defensive players want to stop them. And it makes practice fun to watch at times, especially when they get it on those 11-on-11 drills and the defense is trying to stop them, which today they did. And they did a pretty good job on them yesterday as well.
Yeah, I've been hearing good things about the defense the last couple of days. The times that I was there, I only got to watch 2 days of pads, so I didn't see too much hitting from the defense, but the defensive backs have been looking very good.
Yeah, and that's going to lead right into our next segment, which is talking about the defense and about the defensive backs. I know a lot of people are worried that they think the safeties are getting beat too much. But, when you look at a guy like Adrian Wilson, and I've been watching him closely, this is a guy that makes his bones by being physical. Now, do you really want Adrian Wilson knocking out your rookie wide receivers when they go across the middle? Or is he just going to kind of like come up, let them make the catch, and just be there when they do make the catch? I'm not really concerned so much with him because he's usually in pretty good position. I've watched him closely. Yeah, the guys are catching the ball in front of him, but when they catch the ball in front of him, when the games are for real, he's not just going to come up and pat him on the behind. He's going to be laying dudes out. And so I think it's going to be a totally different animal. I'm not really worried about him. The one surprising thing with the safeties has been that, we were kind of in the dark as to who was going to take that spot next to Devin McCourty. It would either be Adrian Wilson. We thought Tavon Wilson might step up, or, Steve Gregory was kind of the dark horse. But one of the things that's standing out so far in training camp is that Adrian Wilson and Gregory are splitting all the first-team reps, and Tavon Wilson is dropping down the depth chart. Now, it's still early, but now today he was taking third-team reps, and Duron Harmon was coming in behind Gregory and Wilson.
Right. Duron Harmon, he's been stepping up tremendously as well, the rookie safety. I'm definitely pulling for him. I think he's going to be great with special teams as well. I see him as more of a special teams player. And Tavon Wilson, I'm not sure what's going on. I mean, he's been sliding down the depth chart, but I haven't seen him do a lot wrong. It's just, I don't know. I don't really understand what's going on there with him.
That's a good question because he hasn't played badly, but they're just not showing much confidence in him right now. And the one thing that's been standing out the past 2 days, and I'm sure most of our listeners have heard about this already, was that Devin McCourty took some snaps yesterday at the cornerback position, and today he practiced a lot at cornerback. So Adrian Wilson and Steve Gregory were the two starting safeties, and Deron Harmon was their first guy to come in to spell them. With Tavon Wilson coming in after that. But that could just be, as a precaution. I know that Dennard hasn't practiced much the past 2 days, and it could just be that they're, preparing in case he's not going to be with them if he's going to have some jail time or get suspended.
Right. It's definitely an unfortunate situation with Denner, but I definitely think that that's the reason that they're holding him back now, which is a shame because during training camp until these last couple of days with Talib, I think Denner's been the best cornerback. He's been so physical. He's had his hand on a lot of balls that got swatted away. He was the reason that Tom Brady was getting mad a lot.
Yeah, I thought he had an excellent start to camp. And it could be nothing more than them just seeing what's out there because right now their depth is being tested. Razai Dowling, once again, has an injury. He did not practice today. And, this is a refrain we've heard much too often in terms of him. It's never about the ability with Razai Dowling. It's always being able to stay on the field. And once again, he's hurt. We don't know how seriously it is. Hopefully, it's something minor and he's back on the field. But I thought, Dennard and Talib have been outstanding. Arrington had some really good days, and then he had a really bad day the other day. He was getting beat all over the field in one-on-one drills and then on 11-on-11. But, we've seen him step back up. And as long as they keep him in the slot, I think their cornerback position is going to be solid. And the guy that's been really stepping up the last couple of days has been Logan Ryan, the rookie from Rutgers. And I really like another guy who's physical at the line of scrimmage. He likes to jam receivers. And he's not a tremendously big guy, but he's a very short tackler.
Yeah, I think Logan Ryan's been doing a lot. And Rossai, even without that injury, I'm not sure that Logan Ryan hasn't done more than him because I think Logan Ryan's definitely stepped up. And Rossai Dowling, I didn't like his training camp at all, honestly. I really didn't see a lot of enthusiasm from him on the field. And now he's got another lingering. I mean, I understand it's probably a minor injury, but just the fact that you're injured again, like we can only sit here and watch you sit on the sidelines for so long.
Yeah, that was the thing that was, in the spring, we heard about Dowling had probably the best spring workouts and OTAs and mini camps of any of the defensive backs. They were talking about how he was just being, really good out there. And now it seems like he's definitely the fourth guy in terms of cornerback depth because I thought Talib and Dennard, hands down, they're the best guys on the field and for the defensive backs. And then Arrington and, he's next. And now you're looking at Dowling, who everyone thought might possibly, compete for a starting job. I'm not seeing it so far in training camp.
Yeah, I was hoping that he was going to come in and I was going to get to watch some great reps from him, but it's really a shame that he's turned around. I mean, it's still early, though, so don't get me wrong at all. He can have a great preseason, turn it all around, so hopefully that can happen.
Yeah. Well, he had a couple of good days, and then he had a couple of not so good, so we'll have to see how this all plays out. Well, what do you say? Let's move on to the linebackers. And to our listeners, you listen to the Patriots Central, part of the Pro Football Central Network. And we're talking about the Patriots training camp right now. Let's talk about the linebackers. I think the starting three are exactly as they're advertised. They're solid, they're physical, and they're playing really, really well. But the guy that I keep drawing to every day in practice, I know you have been as well, Jamie Collins.
Yeah, I can't wait to watch this kid in games because he's another one. The Patriots really like to find like rare talents, guys who do things that are just you don't see often. And this guy is a natural pass rusher, not pass rushing, and he's dropping back into coverage as a stand-up linebacker, and he's doing great. Like it's something to see, and I've been really impressed, and I hope that it works out because that could be something that the Patriots haven't had, and we could use it.
Absolutely, because I mean, the guy is a physical freak. When you see how big he is, and he's not a really, I mean, muscular guy, but he's long and lanky, and he's built like a 3-4 outside linebacker. I mean, he has some good size to him, but but to see the physical skills this guy has, the one thing that stood out for me the other day was when we talked about the package they have in for Tebow. He was doing his read option, and he rolled out and tried to run with the ball, and Jamie Collins caught him from behind. He ran him down, and he didn't hit him. Of course, the quarterbacks have red jerseys on. He just kind of patted him on the butt and let him know that it's like, hey, I had you, dude.
Yeah.
And he had him in the backfield. And Tim Tebow, say what you will about Tim Tebow. Tebow's a physical dude, and he can run. And for Jamie Collins to track him down like that, I was sitting with Russ and Derek Havens, also from Pats fans, and I started smiling. I was like, did you just see that? That was something special right there. And a lot of people didn't really make notice of that. But this guy, I think, is going to be something special. I think they will eventually work him into the blitzing game off the edge. But he
Right.
does cover very well, and we've seen him do that. He's done a very good job of covering the tight end, and we've seen great reaction, him coming up and covering the running backs when they go out onto the flat.
Right, even when they've been doing like the running back drills, he's been hitting holes really well as well. And again, like we noted on earlier, his ability to knock the ball out is just great to see. So we got somebody that can drop back into coverage. He can chase down running backs and quarterbacks when they're rolling out. He can knock the ball out. Like he's looking like the Patriots made the right choice when they drafted him, and everybody said, "Who's Jamie Collins?"
Exactly, and I think they saw, that this guy has so much versatility, and that he's able to do a lot of different things. And right now, I think they're playing with him a little bit like a chess piece to see, what he can do really well, and they're gonna just keep adding more and more to the mix. We've seen him; he's now taking reps with the first team special teams guys on the kickoff coverage, and we've seen Scott O'Brien work with him and talk to him constantly. So I think he's a guy that they plan on using it and that as well. So this guy, the ceiling is really, really high for him, and he's another guy I can't wait to see what he can do once he hits the field.
Right, and then Dante Hightower, Brandon Spice, and Gerard Mayo, all solid players. So it's going to be. This is a good linebacker group. I'm excited to see them hit the field. How about we move down the line a little bit, talk about the defensive line. I know I knew that Tommy Kelly was big, but when I seen him come to the sideline, like right next to me, he may be the biggest man I've ever seen.
I couldn't believe how big he was. He was standing next to Vince Wilfork on Saturday, and I was like, this is the first time I've ever seen Vince Wilfork look smaller than somebody. And, we actually got to talk with him on Saturday after practice, and he's a really nice guy, and he was funny. He was talking about his weight, and he's on a diet, and he looks pretty slim to me. I mean, he's huge. He has a tremendous frame. I mean, he's got a wingspan unrivaled on the team at this point. But he was really funny, and he mentioned that he had been really looking forward to playing for the Patriots and Bill Belichick, and he's wanted to come here for a long time. But, man, that guy is massive, and he made a clothesline tackle in the running game yesterday on LeGarrette Blount. It reminded me of The Longest Yard, when the guy, broke his freaking neck, and all that. But LeGarrette Blount was coming through, and Tommy Kelly stuck his arm out and then wrapped it around Blunt's head. And Blunt is not a little guy by any stretch of the imagination.
Definitely not. He's
in a headlock as he was going. I was like, oh my God, it was actually kind of scary. But yeah, I think next to Woolfolk, he's going to be really, really good this year.
Yeah, it's going to be fun to watch people try to run through those middle holes.
Absolutely. But the one thing that does stand out right now is the depth at defensive tackle, because I think it's taken a blow. Armand Armstead had surgery for some kind of infection, and would have to assume it's for a heart infection, because you normally don't have surgery for a regular type infection. So, and right now, the depth is being tested. Forston has been playing really well. But, inside there, it's going to be an issue. And they brought in some new guys. But behind Tommy Kelly and Woolfolk right now is wide open.
Right. I mean, I'm not too sure that they're going to be able to switch out very often, which may be a problem because they're both veterans. We definitely need somebody to solidify themselves as being able to fill in when one of those guys needs to come out, because it's going to happen. The defensive end position, of course, looks great with Chandler Jones. Still Rob Ninkovich is holding on to that spot. What do you think about the defensive ends?
I think the two starters are pretty much written in stone. I don't see that changing at all. But the guy, we had such a logjam at defensive end going in, and we were talking about who was going to step up to be the top backups. And the guy that's stepping up is the guy we really didn't give much credence to, and that's Marcus Bennett. He played well for the Browns, and then in the last 2 seasons he's had some injuries. And this is a guy that's really stepped up in the last couple of days. And the one thing I noticed today is they were sliding him inside like they did with Cunningham last year. And when they went to a lighter package, third and long or sub packages, they were moving him inside as a sub rusher in the interior. I think that's a really good sign that they're liking what they're seeing from him.
Yeah, I agree. Bennett was definitely the guy that I was watching. Like you said, I didn't see him coming at all. I wasn't even looking at that name. Like, the depth was so there with Jake Bickett, Justin Francis, Jermaine Cunningham. I was expecting one of those guys to come out, and then Marcus Bennett has been very good.
Yeah, he has been, and like we said, Forston's getting, he's getting a lot of reps, and Corey Grissom is finally on the field. He's been cleared to practice, so we'll be anxious to see what he can do in the big mix of things. But between the defensive tackles, the depth is an issue, but it's not that way at defensive end. I think they're going to be really set there. And, I think this front seven is going to be among the best. I'm going to say this front seven's a top 10 front seven this year. And let's hope that bodes well for the defense, because the one thing that they've lacked was that consistent pass rush. And I think we're going to see that out of Chandler Jones. He's been impressive so far at camp. We haven't really talked about him too much, but he's there every day, and now he's making plays every day, and he just looks really good.
Yeah, Chandler Jones' length is just, he's great. He always gets in there to make a play. I think Chandler Jones may be the best player on the defense this season.
Absolutely. And between him and Tommy Kelly in the middle, and Bennett coming off the edge, and Ninkovich, who's so underrated, I think the pass rush is going to be much better this year. But one more position that I think has been interesting has been on special teams, and that's the punting position with Ryan Allen, who's been doing really, really well. He's got some great, hang time. He's also had some great distances on his punts. He actually outpunted Zoltan Mesko the first couple of days. But the one thing that's stood out was Mesko is so good at positional punting where he can down the ball inside the 5-yard line. And that is turning into a really good camp battle to watch.
Right. Yeah. I'm really glad that you brought this one up. But, shout out to Zoltan Mesko. He came on our show. Awesome guy. But when I first got into training camp and I seen Ryan Allen boot that ball during warm-ups, I was scared for Zoltan Mesko's job. He kicks that ball further than I think I've ever seen somebody punt. But the only thing was, exactly like you said, when they got into situational punting, Zoltan Mesko is so much better at placement. Ryan Allen can hang it up there and he can kick it far, but as far as positioning the ball, Zoltan Mesko has him. So
Yeah.
that is a fun one to watch. Not a lot of people give credit to the punters, but the special teams is huge. Another special teams guy that I've been really impressed with, who I brought up earlier, was Leon Washington at punt and kick returning. I think that he's looking very explosive. I'm excited to have him.
Yeah, absolutely. And, that's the one thing that they've really lacked for the offense is getting consistent, good field position off the kickoffs. When Tom Brady has to go 80 yards or more every time they get the football, it puts a tremendous strain on your offense. Leon Washington brings that element to the special teams game where he is going to put them in much better field position. And we've seen that. He has that explosiveness, and he sees the field really well. He knows where the lanes are, and he knows when to make that cut. And he's been really impressive to watch. And they've been using him actually a lot more in the screen game, too, which, I think he's lethal when he gets into the open field.
He is a dangerous running back, and you know that the Patriots like to switch in different running backs. Another running back, actually, who I meant to touch on earlier was Brandon Bolden. I know that we were talking about special teams, but I just wanted to say that Brandon Bolden, that kid has looked very explosive in early training camp, and I think that he could definitely see some playing time this year. I like the way that he's been running.
Absolutely. He's been, again, in the screen game, Bolden has done really well. And unfortunately for him, he got dinged up the other day at practice,
Right.
although he's been on the field, but he's been working out on the side. So that's usually a good sign that it's not serious and he'll be back soon. I think he's been much, much better than LeGarrette Blount to this point. And we thought that might be a training camp battle to watch with Blount and Bolden fighting it out. But right now I'd say Bolden has that hands down.
Agreed, definitely. I would like to see Blount make the roster, but I'm not too sure that we can hold on to all 5 running backs. But we'll see. We'll see how that one works out.
No, and that's something we'll talk about our next show is start looking at possible 53-man rosters. But, right now I'd say no. I think they're going to probably go with 4 running backs. And I think we might see 7 wide receivers this year. But we'll talk about that on another show because that would be a subject that we can get into for a long period of time. What do you say we wrap this up and, say goodnight here?
All right. It's been a great show. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Make sure you follow us at Patriots Central on Twitter and follow our, what would you call it, database at PF Central. And thank you, everybody. Good night.
This has been a presentation of the Pro Football Central Network. For news, blogs, highlights, and more, log on to ProFootballCentral.com.